Sad to learn of the passing of Brian McKenna, and if that name sounds familiar, and you've lived here for any amount of time, you probably have seen him or seen something that he has done. An amazing documentary filmmaker, had a 50-year career in that business, also as a broadcaster and writer. Bill Brownstein of the Montreal Gazette did a piece on Brian today in the paper, and I wanted to have Bill come on and talk a little bit about his life. And Bill, first of all, had you met Brian McKenna?
Yeah, I knew him quite well over the period of time. He was a fixture downtown in the good old days when, like, Dick Oftermar and George and Balkan and all the Richard Holden and various players down at some of the downtown bar scene. He was around. He was on the road an awful lot, doing a lot of different things. Obviously, making a lot of films, but a really interesting character, as I mentioned. Very, very daring. I mean, he went against the grain. He took shots where few people would ever dare go, in terms of, like, his series on the Valor and the Horror, where he looked at Allied forces bombing strategies during the Second World War with regard to German targets, and people were upset. He had to pay a certain price on that level, but for the most part, he garnered huge respect for his take on film. He never played it safe.
Yeah, you mentioned as well in your piece, Bill, I found this interesting. You know, you think of what people went through to get to or to turn out the way they became. You said in school he felt bullied by teachers?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. His daughter Katie mentioned that and talked about, as a consequence, he taught his kids to challenge authority, to stand up, not to take any guff from anybody, and which has served all of them well. I mean, his three elder children, as you know, his son Connor is on TSN. His daughter Robin is a documentary filmmaker, quite acclaimed, and same with Katie. So, they've all kind of followed in his path, and taking the same sort of attitude as he did.
I lived across the street from Brian and Anne at the time for years and years, and know his kids well, and he had a real way of, like, getting to the heart of the story, I think is the way to say that. But even in everyday conversation, wouldn't you say, Bill? Like, he had a way of just honing in on what really mattered.
Yeah, no, he didn't fool around. Like, he went straight for the heart of everything he did. He wasn't interesting in just, like, kind of schmoozing or taking an easy ride. As I mentioned in the piece I did, one of the guys he worked with is another fellow I know well, Stephen Fizicki. He was a fixture at CBC and then again at the Fifth Estate and other places. And he talked about, like, he's the only guy he could imagine who could talk his way into North Korea to do a film on, like, their side of the Korean War and actually get in. Like, that was the kind of burning ambition he had, and just his effort to really, get to the bottom of everything he was involved with. And, on every, there's so many films he did, like, over, like, 60, and, tackling things like cost overruns at the Olympic Stadium. He did this video, like, the 3-part video tribute to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Is just an unbelievable, like, talent for getting to the right people at the right time. And, a sad loss, because, at 77, he was still, thinking about pursuing other things, and unfortunately, illness got in the way.
Yeah, you mentioned that as well in the piece, right? The idea that even though he was in the palliative care unit at the Jewish, he was still, even then, in the condition he was in, talking about future projects, things he was planning on doing, right?
Right. And if you met him, if you ever knew him, he always had something in his mind. And he had a brother, Terrence McKenna, who he worked with on several projects, including the Valor and the Horror, and they were just forces to be reckoned with. And again, never took the easy way out on anything. And even if it meant like being denounced in certain circles, went ahead, because of this thirst for, like, justice, and wanted to make sure that they got it right, that they weren't kowtowing to anybody in anything they did, and that's his legacy.
Had he been ill for long, Bill?
I think he probably a few years, but like with then with COVID and then pneumonia and and then a bad fall, all helped to do him in, which really unfortunate. Yeah.
Sad to note the passing of Montrealer Brian McKenna at the age of only 77. Bill, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.